Live. Okay, recording live. And welcome to Firedance. We are we are on Friday, the 12th of November, rather not the 12th of November, the 29th of November, and the day after Thanksgiving. So lots of folks are doing whatever it is they do other than being in a tryptophan coma. So I really appreciate the people who've shown up today because there's a lot of traveling going on. There's a lot of recovery going on. So what we have here is an opportunity for us to discuss the issues that we find most important. And for me, the most important one is to provide yourself, because that's the first step, no matter what, is taking care of yourself. And that means taking care of yourself physically, emotionally, and financially. And kind of in that order. There are only two ways of doing that efficiently and effectively that I know of. One is to start with your physical, then move to the emotional, and then the financial. The other is to start with the emotional, then go to the physical, then go to the mental, financial. The worst pattern from a number of perspectives is to start with your head, start with questions about power and money and problem solving, and then try to go to your heart and open it, and then try to go to your body and engage the survival drive. The most painful, the people I know who are in the most pain are smart people who opened their hearts before they triggered their survival drives. I have seen that. They don't know why their life isn't working. They develop theories about how the world works, and when the world doesn't match those theories, they think the world doesn't work or the world is cruel, rather than saying, I made a mistake. Let me reconsider. What is the human world that is built on a chassis of animal survival? To do that, I think, enables you to navigate this. And there are so many people right now who are feeling confused and frightened that, starting with the question of who am I and what do I need to take care of myself, and then how do I take care of my family, and then how do I serve the world? If you can see how that maps over with the question of escape suffering, embrace joy, and be of service, or the notion of is it true, is it kind, is it useful? These things all overlap. And unfortunately, they don't necessarily overlap in a way that is so direct that I can lay out a single pattern that addresses all of them. I ain't that smart. But what I can do is take a look and see what are all these different paths, all these different patterns saying about the process. What can we do to tap into that? And I think we can do that by looking at these different patterns and saying these things are all designed to serve human life. How do they serve human life? How do they serve the individual? How do they serve the family? How do they serve the community? In many cases, we have evolved to the point where we don't have to pay the same level of attention that our ancestors did to these things. We have new options. But I think that without understanding how we got here and how these patterns contributed to survival, it's difficult to design a path to the future. You can't grow a tall tree without deep roots. You can't create a tall building without deep foundations. The progressive and conservative wings of a nation's politic are always battling between these two things. And the people, God, it's almost as if I was going to say the foot soldiers and the officer corps. This is inexact, and it's not exactly what I mean to say, but I'm going to say it, and I'm going to hope that you can understand it. On one level, there are people who would rather be right and lose than be wrong and win. I get that. And the that's an appropriate way to look at things for junior officers and the enlisted troops. The leaders have to be capable of resolving that duality. that it is not necessary, that there's a way beyond those things. And I think that you can measure someone's capacity to resolve those dualities and whether or not they can look at their opponents and give them humanity. The people who look at what are considered to be their quote unquote enemies and realize that they're human too. You take a look at in Sun Tzu's The Art of War, and you talk about respecting the enemy, understanding the enemy, giving the enemy a place to back down honorably, to try to turn them into allies, and so forth and so on. To me, suggests you're looking at somebody with an elevated perspective. That the last thing you want to do is war, but it also has to be the responsibility to be prepared for that. How do you avoid that? One of the ways you avoid that is by having your goals very, very clear and understanding how your opponent thinks about these things so that if at all possible, you can create alliances rather than destroying the city. The people who need to believe that those on the other side are not quite as human, not quite as smart, they're kind of stuck in that dualistic thought. Those are the same as the people who, you know, man, when you talk about those foot soldiers, if you have to have people who think dualistically, quite frankly, I want the foot soldiers to be people who would rather be wrong and win. But I want my officer corps to see that that's not actually what's necessary. That's the personalities. You can't change the personalities of the people out on the front lines. But the people who would rather be right and lose, they'll lose your war for you. The people who can win the war are the people who see that it's possible for us to all win. Hopefully the politicians, hopefully the people who are pushing the triggers. What you want is those transformative leaders who can see a way for everybody to win. And that we're not dealing with our enemies, we're dealing with other human beings, other neighbors. Otherwise, fight to win. And if you believe that we're at a point where that metaphor works, then ask yourself, can you see the humanity of the people who you believe to be on the other side? Can you? To the degree you can rise above that duality. But if you can't, you better be, you better be on the side of I'm going to win, or on the side of we can all win, because I respect you and I see your humanity. I'm sure that that's just a way of looking at it, and I can't swear to it. This is something that I've been thinking about recently. The question of between adult and child personalities, that war between the artist and the marketer, that war between the masculine and feminine aspects, that war between tribes defined by race, and so forth and so on. That the people who rise above invariably resolve those dualities. They see that we're not actually trapped there. But if you are trapped there, then play to win. I can guarantee you that the people on the other side do. That if you have fewer people who are capable of actually fighting to win, even if they don't understand what's going on, and you're not prepared to step into that non-dualistic thought where it's like, I'm going to make plans such that we can all win, then support the people who can. Support the people who are going to fight, and support the people who are asking you to see the humanity in both sides. How do we bring this together? I have always greatly admired the people who could use that kind of non-dualistic thought, and I think that they have become the greatest leaders that we've ever had. Tananarive seems to be on the line. I would like very, very much to introduce my good lady wife and allow her to speak, because she's not necessarily going to have the same perspective I have. Not at all.
Screw them. No, kidding. I'm just kidding. I mean, it would be so easy to say screw them if it went like literally your mom, your brother, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it's your family members in particular, you cannot call them the enemy in your head. That's not productive. Even though by
It can be
action or
satisfying.
inaction,
It can be
yeah, I'm
very
sure it does feel
satisfying.
good in the moment, but these relationships are singular, and however fraught they may have been with tension or disappointment in the past, that's the only family you have. That's the only brother you have. That's the only oldest friend you've had. So I do agree with the, as you were talking, I don't know if this actually is any relevance whatsoever. I almost don't want to say it. In fact, I'm not. It's not relevant. But in terms of tactics and strategies and that kind of thing, I think a new era of leadership definitely needs to emerge on a national level. And a lot of what I focus on is an individual level, a family level, and a community level, and strengthening our forces there so we can just weather this transition without feeling as upended as we did in 2016, 2017. That's a major goal of mine, is not to go through that cycle of rage and, just to figure out, where am I standing at the gate? Which gate am I defending? And how can I take small actions daily that will make a difference? And for some people, it's joining Big Brothers, Big Sisters, to be honest. I did that for 7 years when I was single. And I know I had a lasting impact on this girl's life. So taking action doesn't necessarily mean going to a protest and subjecting yourself to state violence, although we can raise money to support people who are brave enough to do that. It's also about shoring up your own practices, making sure that you don't have your joy stolen for the next 4 to 8 years. We may not even have 4 to 8 years. You know what I mean? So we can't afford to be, we don't know what the future holds. So instead of focusing on a bright point in the future that we don't even know how to imagine at the moment or what that even looks like, we have to create our bright points along the way and feel like we're not waiting for things to be better, but to make things better on an individual basis and on a creative basis, frankly, not just putting our head in the sand, but spreading joy, because art does spread joy, community does spread joy. Uh, Calling up a parent who's rejected you for whatever reason, and accepting their limitations can spread joy, even if they don't admit it. So that's all I have to say. It's good to see everybody. I know it's the holiday time, so it's probably not easy for everybody to be here, and appreciate your presence and hope you will enjoy this gathering. And just want to remind those of you who are interested in writing horror that we just launched a digital download horror course where you could literally write your story before 2025. If you feel like there's like something beyond 2025 you don't even want to deal with, this is a way to stay embedded in 2024. What can you create before 2025? And that would be a horror short story. So check out fearmasters.com, where we have that available. It's a digital download mini course. And aside from that, I will leave it to you, Steve.
Thank you, sweetheart. We had a comment here that the problem with going with military and enemy examples is that from that perspective, you're already at an extreme point. Simply by being there removes us from the center of the non-dualistic universe. We're not at the center of it. We're not at an extreme either. And that would depend upon how we see those terms, how we hold those terms. If you are capable of holding a non-dualistic position and simultaneously defend yourself from a tiger, now you're at the position because you're in alignment with life, you're non-dualistic. The tiger has as much right to exist as you do, but the tiger will act in accordance with its instincts because that is nature. You behave in accordance with yours, which means you each defend yourselves. There are plenty of people who can get caught into that non-dualistic thing, and because they're not connected to their survival drive, they see that this creature, this person, this mugger, whatever it is, has just as much right to live as they do. They're paralyzed. So you have to have that non-dualistic plate, but simultaneously be able to do what is necessary to protect life, to be in alignment with nature. The entire Bhagavad Gita, a segment of the Mahabharata, is basically dealing with a conversation between a warrior and a god figure, basically, wondering how can I be a spiritual person and ride into combat and kill my relatives? How can I do that? Because it's my relatives down there on the other side. And it's a conversation about the nature of honor, the nature of duty, the nature of life, because it is possible to be so spiritual that you're paralyzed against action in the real world. And that happens, as I said, if you're not connected with your survival drive, which is why it can seem that it is healthy to, awaken your spiritual nature in your heart. But if you don't connect with your survival drive yet, your people will get wiped out by the people who have. And that is not in alignment with nature. So if you just listen to people who are in that spiritual place, who are not connected there, they will literally give you what I would consider to be a an unuseful view of what a spiritual life is. That you can't be so spiritual that you're incapable of taking effective action. That you do that and you have betrayed your obligation to your children. And this war between what is worldly and what is spiritual, and what is loving and what is emotional, and how does this relate to the us them that is necessary at times to survive in the material world? This is the battle. This is the battle. And to be able to fight without hate, to be able to take action, even though you know that the other person has just as much right to exist as you have, and to realize that before you enter the stress, you accept an honorable set of values that you work through before the battle begins. Who am I? What is true? How do I do this? How do I negotiate this? If good people do not take that time, then the world will be taken over by bad people who don't care whether or not their actions are right or wrong. They just want to win. If winning is important, you have to find a way to hold it in a way that allows you to do your duty, to protect your values, to protect your family, to protect your communities, and still be walking in the light. And if this was easy, everybody would be able to do it. But the leaders we need have to be able to do this. Or once again, the world will belong to people who don't care, who simply want to survive. This is so important. One of the ways you can do this is that notion of the three gates. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it useful? How does a warrior walk between those things? You, I can tell you how I think about it, but you need to think about it for yourself. You look at the different archetypes. There's the warrior, there's the healer, there's the teacher, there's the lover, there's the parent, there's the administrator. However the judge. However you look at those core archetypes, the warrior and the healer are probably on the same axis on the other side. How do you hold both? How do you look at both? And this, once again, has been a question that people have been asking themselves for thousands of years. And every culture has its answers for it. And every individual needs to have their answers. And to the degree that you think that this is a time to fight, you need to find those answers. Because otherwise, as I said, you will get taken over or wiped out by the people who don't care, who are going to focus on survival. It takes an unusual human being to connect with the survival drive, open their heart, and see life as a spiritual process. That's unusual. If you want to lead us to the promised land, you have to be one of those people. That's tough. And if right now you're looking at the people who you consider to be your enemies, your political opponents, and you're considering them less intelligent, less honorable, less human, you can be a fighter on the ground, but you can't be one of the people who helps to direct the processes. You can't be, because that requires philosophers, especially at the very, very top, rare individuals. I believe that it's possible for all of us to walk that path. But the first is, what would you have to change within yourself to be able to see the full humanity of a mugger and still do what needs to be done to get home safely and with your wallet? How do you need to see this? How do you need to see someone who voted differently than you without considering them to be subhuman? Can you do that? If you can't, you're the same as the person that you're opposing. They're doing the same thing to you. The answers will be in the people on either side who can rise above that. And that's the only position I'm going to take here. That I want you to be, what are the things that you need to do to be a spiritual warrior in this sense? Start with the mundane. Start with the mundane. First, protect yourself, protect your heart, protect your body. Then, well, actually, protect your body. Okay, let's say that the first step is just to protect your body. Are you dealing with stress? Are you doing the breathing? Are you doing the morning ritual so that your stress turns into energy that you're taking effective, with which you're taking effective action? The next is you open your heart. You love at least one other person. Preferably, it's even better. You make three people, aim at making three people smile every day. Okay, just protect them, nurture them from your strength, from your balance. When they are in despair, you must be strong. When they are radiating hatred, you understand this is fear, and they're looking. If you can fight without losing your humanity, you will have people lining up behind you wanting to know, how did you do this? Because what I'm seeing is people who either fight and denigrate, or people who see the humanity in others and get paralyzed. How do you do both? If you can exemplify that, you can make a difference. Because the third step is to succeed. Whatever it is you're doing in life, succeed. You want to have abundant physical energy and health, and a positive outlook on life, and belief and hope and faith. Because you take a look, the the second step in Think and Grow Rich is faith. If you don't have faith, you can't get to the next step. And this is from a mundane guy just talking about making money and being successful in the world. The same thing is true. Our ability to have faith matters. So if you look at people who have lost that right now, you need to stand up and show them that you can do it. If the first step is taking care of yourself, and the second step is taking care of your family, however you define that, the third step is succeeding so that you can benefit your tribe, whether that is providing physical strength and energy, emotional balance, or funds, resources, being able to help people who cannot help themselves. Drowning swimmers will drag down the lifeguards. If you're going to care about them, either support the lifeguards, get your feet on solid ground so you can just throw them a life preserver and shout, this way to the shore, or become a strong enough swimmer that you can get in the water without them drowning you. Otherwise, I'm not sure what you're supposed to do. There is that path, but what I'm talking about here, which is being a warrior of the heart, but understanding that starts with the survival drive, not with being fluffy, not with saying we can all love each other, without also understanding you have teeth. If you don't understand that, it is dangerous to open your heart. If you don't have that, if you don't have your survival connected to yourself and to your family, it is dangerous to be, quote unquote, too spiritual, to just see that everything is everything and we're all one. That's foolish confidence. It's foolish optimism. It's like saying there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, while the weeds take over your garden. You have to be sensible about these things. The point is to move away, to escape suffering, embrace joy, and be of service. That escaping suffering means being able to stay in the moment, taking effective action, rather than allowing your fears of the past, or your guilt about the past, or your fear of the future to stop you from taking action in the moment, or stop you from enjoying life in the moment. Escape suffering, embrace joy, be of service. One of those things is that balance between the male and the female energy. Really important right now. We're really dealing with a lot of this. And quite frankly, I see a lot of people who don't really believe in equality, but they give lip service to it. So they will blame women, incels blame women for not being attracted to them. Okay, the ones who are poisonous about it. But there are women who blame men for being men. and are afraid of that male energy and so condemn it. But then they will also wonder, where are the protectors? You have to be balanced between the two, however you define those things. And to see the external war has to be won on the internal level. You have to see both the active and passive aspects of this and how they fit together, and how they're both, whether you call it yin and yang energy, direct and indirect. I don't care. Get out of the politics of it. What's really going on within us as individuals that allowed families to survive a really hostile world, that allowed us to get to the point where we can reconsider some of the choices that we made and make better choices? One of those balances is the child and the adult. The child could be seen as that creative, dreamer, energetic, optimistic, playful part of our personality. The adult part of our personality is the business, calculating, taking care of numbers and contracts, marketing and sales. The healthy person would be somebody who has that chewy center, that has that all that playfulness, but also has an adult self strong enough to protect that child. You can see this in people who do not understand the need for play, do not understand the need for imagination, who put people down for their hobbies and enthusiasms. So, they're stuck in their adult self. Their child self got wounded along the way. But you also see it in the artists who refuse to market, who say, I'm an artist, give me money, as opposed to, I'm an artist, these are my values, I'm going to find a tribe that likes the values that I'm presenting, and I will present my values to that tribe, and then I will ask for money. To separate those two allows you to have the aliveness of the child combined with the calculation and ability to navigate the adult world, meaning money, of the adult. And you can often actually see where people are stuck, whether they're stuck in the feminine, they're stuck in the masculine, they're stuck in the child, they're stuck in the adult. You need to be able to navigate these things without pointing fingers. And I will be honest with you, people cannot do that. People who are stuck in the child or the adult, who are stuck in the feminine or the masculine and point their fingers at the other side, I kind of think that is a mindset, that is a way of being. And in my heart of hearts, I think they're doing the same things racially. They're just not being honest about it. Now, that's just me. And I have no deep research on it, but it is definitely the way I look at it, that there is the tendency to be able to see both sides, but still take action, to see both sides. And there's a tendency for action. And there's a tendency to be able to see both sides, but still do your duty and take action. If you cannot see both sides, that personality that needs to say, well, my side is better, as opposed to my side is more appropriate for my values and goals, that I'm doing what is in alignment with who it is that I am, and say these people are doing something different. They believe that what they're doing is in alignment with their needs, because the core of what everyone wants is the same: to escape suffering, embrace joy, and be of service. If you can show people how their actions can get to where they want to go, better your way than theirs, or maybe even creating a third way by combining the two that allows you to work together, the people who can do that, those are the ones who can make the changes. And if the basics of the persuasion technique, the first step is to achieve rapport, then the people who are saying it's impossible to talk to those people can't be changed, they're just evil, those people have defined themselves as the people who cannot solve the problem. That's who they are. They're people who are trapped in the illusions. They're part of the problem, even if they're on your side. They can be your troops. But who are the leaders going to be? What I'm hoping is that I'm talking to people who want to be leaders here, whether it's actually going out and marching, or teaching people formally, or just leading by example. All of that stuff is what we need. We don't need everybody to say, follow me. We need people to say, I'm going to live my life with passion and intensity and integrity in the midst of what you think is an unsolvable problem. There are always answers. Sometimes the answer is just wait long enough. Sometimes the answer is take the smartest action you can in a calculated way at the right moment with the right force, the right perspective, and you can get it done. Needless to say, that's my perspective. Whatever yours is, I'm going to say that the more you can hold a positive intent, the more people are going to be likely to want to lead you. The more you can look beyond dualities and still take effective action, the more likely they will follow you someplace worth going to. Anyway, so that's kind of what I wanted to say today. And what I wanted to do now was to allow people to ask questions. What do I need to expand on here? What recognize an opportunity and be in a position to take it? Absolutely, Amelia. Absolutely. What are the opportunities? There are always opportunities. But if that opportunity demands that you see the humanity in the other person and you can't, or if you need to believe that they're taking actions just because they're evil, and the truth is that they're taking actions because they're afraid, that's an enormous difference. There's a difference between a rabid animal and a hungry animal or a wounded animal. Those are not the same animals. And they require different strategies. And some of those strategies enable you to make peace with that animal, domesticate it, be neighbors with it. Not everything has to end in one or the other person loses. If it's a situation where only one can win, and that's really what it is, then the Bhagavad Gita is saying you do your duty and you trust in the universe to protect you. So looking deeply at these questions, critical. Who has Amelia Phillips? Hello, Amelia.
Hello.
Hi there. Would you talk to us a little bit about what you were thinking?
It's something that I mean I've used throughout my life, and I actually, goodness, the person I read it from was actually Bill Gates.
Hmm.
Recognizing that people have a problem and you're going to solve it even though they don't know that they have a problem.
Yes.
And so that whole thing, but also the fact that you see that there's an opportunity and you have to have yourself in a position where you can step forward and address it.
Yes.
It's one of those things. I mean, I've been in positions where I think I mentioned before, the Aryan Nation wanted to march on the 4th of July. We could not deny them their right to march. This was in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Um, but we just say you can't march on the 4th of July, but you can march because that is their right. And so those are the things of, yeah, like with my co-author, he's a hardcore Republican. We've written together for 20 years,
That's
you know,
beautiful. That's
you
beautiful.
know, and we disagree on things, but
Yep.
we just go, I acknowledge it. I even told him recently, this is the only time in my life I ever wished I lived in a red state because those laws would protect me, and it's just sort of that type of thinking of, yeah, there's a lot of stuff out here we can do, and what's going to be the best path for me,
If
where I
you,
still
if you,
walk my path.
okay, so I just wanted to comment on something, and then I had the feeling that Tananarive wanted to jump in. Tananarive, were
Please.
you thinking you wanted to say something? Because if you
No,
did,
just
let me
listening.
say
Just
something, and then
listening.
I'm going to turn it over to you.
Just saying hello and
It's
listening
this.
now.
Okay, so this is what you do. First, your responsibility is to take care of yourself, Amelia. That is your primary responsibility. Never let anybody convince you otherwise. Now, there are situations, especially if you step into your warrior nature, protecting your family, where doing what is in alignment with who you are requires that you sacrifice your own life or be willing to. But you do it for your reasons, not because somebody else told you to. You have to be crystal clear on this. So it's take care of yourself. What is good for you? Then ask yourself, what is good for your family? And that would include, your community, whatever you consider to be your family. My family is not defined by genetics. My family is defined by actions and values. Okay. Then the third step is you you do the things that are good for you and for your family, such that if the whole world was like this, the world would be a better place. And you can honestly say, all I want is what is best for the world. All I want is what is good. And you have the courage to stand up and be who you are, protecting yourself and then your family, and then offering your love to the world on your terms. And you're constantly digging deeper into that question, what is the world? Who am I?
Hmm. I like
You
that.
become one of the people capable. If there is an answer, you will be one of the people capable of finding that answer. And I believe there is always an answer. Maybe I won't be smart enough or wise enough to find it or have the time to find it, but there is always an answer. Take
Yes.
care of yourself first, then your family, and then offer your love to community. Escape suffering, embrace joy, be of service. Can you see how those two things are aligned with each other?
Yes. And I am guilty of not putting myself first.
We all we all have these flaws. One of the beautiful things about getting together once a week is to be able to discuss these things. So I would like you to make a commitment to yourself right now, or to us, or to me. From now on, you're going to put yourself first, but you will work on expanding your definition of self.
A little bit more on that of is that with
Yes,
the community and whatever?
absolutely. Yes. You start, what is the self? One of the things that is true is that people who feel safe begin to expand their hearts. They bring in a beloved, and suddenly it's the two of us against the world. You have a family. This is my baby. This is my child. My child is part of me. You have friendships and family, and your definition of self, who you are, begins to expand as you feel safe. Under danger, it contracts, usually just to the family. It's just us against the world. When that doesn't work, it's just me, and that's terrible. We all and that's why as soon as you feel safe, we want to find love. We want to connect with someone because it's lonely out there if it's just you and survival. You don't want to just hunt yourself in the woods. Both success and danger are better to face when you have love at your side. So yourself first, and then that idea of who am I think leads people who feel safe to expand to seeing that they are the world. They are the people around them. They are their families. That the connection between you and your beloved, you start seeing that you're part of the same thing. That it's not separate beings, it's more like mushrooms growing in a mycelial patch. You look under the ground and all those mushrooms are coming from the same place. They're just branches off the same tree. So take care of yourself first so that you feel safe. Then you can open your heart and start seeing the connection between yourself and others. But take care of yourself first. The mistake people make is seeing that connection before they bare their teeth and say, I will survive. Here I stand. This is who I am. Okay. It is critical. The children of the world are not safe unless the adults stand up. Societies are not safe unless there are enough people who pierce the veil of separation and see the commonality, unless people can move beyond despair of the past and the future and live in a dynamic moment. And as far as I'm concerned, all of our great leaders could do that. Every single one of our great leaders spoke about us and the mission and the roots from the past and the possibility of a future and how courage and love can move us forward. Those are the leaders that last through the centuries, the ones that inspire us in our darkest moments. Learn to inspire yourself in your darkest moment, then your family, and then simply walk in your light. And if you have the heart for it, be a leader. If not, you take care of your family. If not, take care of yourself. But always start there. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. No, you're reminding me, I read the book The Long Path to Freedom with Nelson Mandela.
Oh,
And,
excellent.
having actually been to Rikers Island, it's like he spent 27 years there. And to come out the way he did, it's
That's
like,
right. See,
yeah.
that's the kind of human being to study. Right there. How do you do that? How the great leaders, whether they be spiritual, political, business leaders, whatever, have a vision. And now then they look for, how do I create this vision? What I can say is that my vision is to help 1 million people escape suffering, embrace joy, and be of service. And I can do that by helping 1,000 people each commit to helping 100 people, who each help 10 people. If I can do that, I win. I can see how to do this. But I need you. And I need you not to be following me, but walking the same path, which means you need to have models and mentors other than me. You absolutely need to. I cannot do this. I cannot create custom made programs for each person. What I can do is say, isn't this path really the path that we want to walk? And those who agree, walk that. And hopefully everybody else will find a path that works better for them. Those are still brothers and sisters. That's great. All I can do honestly is describe the path that I'm on. That's all I can do. Thank you so much, Amelia. That's
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you. Oh, and Tananarive, did you want to speak, sweetheart? Unmute yourself.
No, I don't really have anything to add.
Okay,
That's
great. Well, let's move on then. Boom, 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 boom. And Ross, I believe that Ross had some questions or something that you wanted me to focus on, buddy. Is Ross here? Ross is not here. Oh my. We have a more intimate group today. Stephen Bauer, you were making some comments about non-dualistic thought. Please expand.
Sorry, trying to click my mic. My experience is a little bit different from everyone else, having been in the Army from enlisted up through officer. But if you start off in a non-dualistic perspective, understanding that, as they described in the comment section, that how you define the problem sometimes define what solutions you're even willing to look at. Um, if you're willing to start there, you're more in the center, in a center portion. If you start using the words of enemy, and we're going to look at this from a military point of view, you've moved one side or the other of center mentally by your word constructs and gone into okay, what do we do with the enemy? I mean, we crush them and listen to the lamentations of their women, at least according to Robert Howard. Um, but but when you use the word enemy, that's the only acceptable, for the definition of the word enemy, the only acceptable answer and instinct. When you start to say, hey, this is an opposing force and we're pushing this way and they're pushing in a different vector, you expand your options. And when you go in and you say, looking at this from a military perspective, and we have an enemy, there's only one thing to do. You're not talking about a tiger. You're talking about a tiger who is in the clearing with you, has scrunched down, the tail's whipping back and forth rapidly, and you need to do something, hopefully first, because you're already at the point where it's you or the tiger, and it has to be you. And it doesn't matter the
Okay,
tiger's
so
750 pounds.
here's what I would say to that. You spent a lifetime in the military, which means you're grounded absolutely in that survival place. So for you, something along the lines of the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius is talking about how to be a moral human being in society, even though you have been in war. It's talking about calming down that place. Your first thing you said was, when you start with non-dualistic thought. I think it is critical to not start with non-dualistic thought. You start with survival, then you move to opening your heart. And as you do that, you begin to see beyond the dualities. And now it's time for non-dualistic thought. So the people who start with non-dualistic thought, you can simply you can get so lost in that that you can't see any reason to eat. What difference does it make? Life and death, comfort and discomfort, none of these things are real. Okay? And you take it far enough, and that's true. It's true. So how do you keep your children safe, but at the same time open yourself to the kind of thought that's capable of solving these problems, which is non-dualistic thought? It's by opening those potentials in a specific order, I think. That is what yoga tends to say about it. You go from the physical to the emotional and then to the mental and spiritual. The danger is in starting from the spiritual or mental and not grounding it. I see people hurting themselves with that all the time. They either become so passive that they cannot act, they freeze, or they have a vision of the world that does not match actual reality and then try to create a world that matches their vision. That's dangerous. But if you know that the primary drive is to survive, then you look at the fact, well, the tiger is in our camp. Need we kill the tiger? Actually, we could drive the tiger away and we're just as safe. Or whatever it is that you need to do. We don't have to kill the tiger, we can build walls. We don't have to kill the tiger, we can capture it. But we have to be sure that our children are safe. So the capacity to kill the tiger is important. Once you know you can do that, then you can ask, what other options do we have? Let's find a more humane way of dealing with tigers. You come from the
And you're
warrior
right.
personality.
I mean, it's hard for me to imagine not having that baseline. I mean,
Yes, that's
I've
right. We're
never
talking
in my
about,
life not had that perspective. And so,
see,
look,
you've got that, and that makes you somebody
considering
we need.
someone doesn't is,
Yes, that's what I'm seeing. That your attitude, if that I will survive attitude is connected to the my tribe will survive attitude, which is then potentially connected to the but we're all really the same tribe. If I can help you with that, then you can guide others with that. What I see too much of on my side of the political spectrum is people who have open hearts and are spiritual but are not connected to their survival drives. On the other side, what I see is people who are connected to the survival drives but aren't necessarily connected to their hearts as spiritual perspectives in that way. And it's like, oh, big. Okay, so between the two of them, they got a healthy human being going on here. How do we bridge that gap? People who have their hearts and spirits open, I ground them, or I encourage them to ground themselves. People who have that grounding, I encourage them to escape suffering and embrace joy. It's encouraging people to have all three centers open in a specific syntax. That's what I'm aiming at here. I don't know if I'm succeeding at it. I know that's my intention and that's what I'm working toward. So thank you very much for saying something which needs to be said. How do we end the war between warriors and healers, in essence, between the spiritual and the material? It's by, this is one of the reasons why I really love, I can change this. I love having different images. The different chakras represent different levels of what we are, and they either spread out from the heart or up from survival. And one of the things that's important is drowning swimmers will drag down lifeguards. When people feel desperate for their lives, their ethics go out the window. If you want people to be safe enough to think lovingly and ethically, help them feel safe. So if you can be strong enough to protect them, then they have a chance to take a breath and ask where they are, what's going on, and who do they want to be. But if they have a choice between being wrong and surviving or being right and dying, the only people left are going to be the ones who chose being wrong. We can't have that. But that's what will happen unless enough of us can both connect with the survival drive and see the connection between us as human beings. That's rare. And that's why I'm focusing on people willing to do that. Healers willing to embrace the warrior, warriors willing to embrace the healers, the spiritual willing to embrace the material, the materialistic willing to embrace the spiritual. Resolve those dualities, but you can't resolve them by ignoring either one of them. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And again, I I like the non-dualistic point of view, and I like the discussion on warrior versus healer with the perspective that it's all a Venn diagram. It can't be a warrior or a
Yes.
healer.
It's not just a Venn diagram.
I have to be a warrior healer who also has a philosopher's perspective, and I
Yes.
need to be able to reach in there actively and determine what part needs to apply to the situation that I'm in right now.
My my friend, it's not it's not two Venn diagrams to me. It's two sides of the same coin. Or it's two ways of looking at the same dynamic sphere. It's a point of entry rather than something else. There is no other thing. Healing and protection, I don't want to be too blunt about that, are two sides of the same coin. They're the same thing. They are the things that make life possible. To look at that, break it into the male and female dynamic, and you can see that war right very clearly right now. And we need to resolve it if we're going to win this. Thank you very much, Stephen. Tom Barkley. Okay.
I was unmuted, sorry.
Mhm.
How would you apply what you're describing to a confrontation with what you've called before smiling serpents? Wouldn't you have opposing forces that are dedicated to tactics that involve dishonest negotiation, overt and covert theft as principles of their operation?
Well, look, all these people, they're smiling because they don't want you to know that they're serpents. If you identify them as serpents and you label them clearly as such, you expose their behaviors, they're no longer as dangerous. The reason they want to smile is because serpents, strike from darkness in that sense. So the first thing to do is to ask what is true. What is true? Okay, this is a serpent. It's smiling at me because it wants to strike. That's interesting. Serpents, the nature of a serpent is to strike, so I'm not going to be fooled by that. But nor will I believe I cannot protect myself from it. If you believe you can protect yourself from it, or you know that you need to protect yourself, that you're not in the momentary, in other words, like the mugger who steps out of an alley smiling, saying, what time is it? Hoping you're going to look down at your watch, so that he can hit you. If you understand that, you take a step back and you say, I think you know what time it is. The question is it go time? So it's like you let them know that you know what they are, and you have your position of, I'm going to protect myself and I'm going to protect my family. I'm not going to let you hurt me. But if they know that now the next move is on them. So you don't engage in a dishonest negotiation. You say, this is what I see is really happening here. Are you willing to negotiate on this basis? If they're not willing to negotiate on that basis, the negotiation is over. And the only question then is, what time is it? Because if it's go time, I'm ready to go. But what you really wanted from me was something that would diminish the pain in your life, increase the joy in your life. Perhaps we can have an honest negotiation that will enable you to accomplish what you want. I have dealt with enemies. I've dealt with muggers. I've dealt with people who, if I understood what they really wanted, sometimes they don't even know what they really want. There is a book called Core Transformation by a lady named Connie Ray Andreas from NLP Comprehensive in Colorado. Fantastic book. And it basically says that all human behavior, and it offers experiments that allow you to test this theory. I love experiments. All human behaviors, no matter how evil, are attempts to approach the divine, or attempts to connect with the sense of peace that we felt in the womb. However you want to put that, that everything is fear. That if you remove the fear, if the person did not feel a lack, they would not need to act from their lesser animal instincts. So some part of them is struggling to survive. And like I said, a drowning swimmer will drag down the lifeguard. The forebrain shuts down. All you've got left is the limbic system and the survival drives. So you don't want to trigger that. You don't ever want to trigger that. You never want people to feel that the only way they can survive is by hurting you. So the clearer you are on what's going on, the easier it is to devise strategies and tactics to stay safe. That's your first responsibility, is to be safe. And if you know beyond any doubt that you're going to protect yourself, then you can kind of relax and say, okay, this person is lying to try to get me to do this, they're trying to do this, do this. They can't do it because you're already safe. They're just thrashing around. They don't know that you're ahead of them because you see reality more clearly than they do. The only way to do that is to know yourself more clearly than they know themselves. And if you do that without hate, if you understand that they're doing the best they can too, then you can both be safe, because the tiger just wants to eat, and you can sometimes help them. Some of those tigers might be tameable. I said, well, listen, let me share my hunt with you. Can we have peace here? If not, here is my sword. If we can have peace, we can be neighbors. And I think that that is how tribes have blended since the beginning of time. Those who can see that they can actually get what they want, their personal survival and their family survival, without lying. Because remember, that's that three gates. You know that somebody is outside the three gates. If you believe in the three gates, then there's no way you can consider that they're winning. They may think that they're winning, but by what values? What's going on? They're not getting what they really wanted. They're getting the illusion of what they wanted. So while always remembering your primary responsibility is to be safe, is to protect yourself, and the secondary responsibility is to protect your family, the third level responsibility is to attempt to make a world that works for all of us. But start with survival and that question, what's true here? Oh, what's true is this mugger wants me to think that they're a nice guy so that I'll drop my attention so that he can hurt me. If you see that clearly, your chances of being hurt are drastically smaller, because muggers by definition are people not interested in working for a living. By definition, if they know that you're aware of them, they're going to go someplace else unless they're really desperate. Does that make sense, Tom?
In part. How
Okay,
would
tell
you,
me the part that doesn't make sense.
how would you apply that to bullies and their coterie? Because bullies never approach an armed, capable target. As soon
Well,
as they see you,
so you be an armed, capable target. That's how you deal with it. That, it's
but you have to
it's that.
demonstrate that. But
No, you don't have to demonstrate it. You don't have to, all you have to do is be it. Predators specialize in studying body language. They look for the weak members of the flock. If you have already dealt with your fear, you walk differently, you talk differently, you use different words and different tonalities. You're not a victim. The bully will avoid you if they possibly can. And if they don't, then you have to demonstrate. But it is by being strong in that sense. It's that attitude of, you may get a ham dinner, but I'm going to get a ham sandwich. That no matter what you do, I'm going to hurt you. If this begins, I'm going to hurt you, and I will not necessarily hurt you on your terms, on your time. This is not going to work out well for you, no matter what. If you have that attitude, I'm not saying to say that, but to have words of peace while you're holding a sword behind your back. If you're holding a sword behind your back, you can afford to speak softly, because you know what happens if they don't respond to softness. The trick is not to be doing that from weakness, not to be doing that from fear that you can't defend yourself, but for a preference for peace, because you're totally in touch with the part of you that would love to go to war. That part of you that says, I have had enough. I'm not going to let myself get hurt anymore in this lifetime. Bring it. You need that part of you, that wolf part of you. The wolf part of you is what keeps your heart safe. So these questions apply most strongly to people who are looking for a way to not have to contact that lethal part of themselves, the part of themselves that every baby has, every kitten has, but that human beings put aside socially. What's necessary is to realize that if this person is not playing by social rules, you're a fool to play by social rules. You can play by philosophical rules, which include doing all that you can to avoid harming other people. But when it's time to go to war, you go to war. Simple as that. But now let me find any way to keep this from happening. But you don't step off. It's like if your child, if your helpless child is behind you, then you can't step off the line. But you can negotiate as long as possible. But you can't step off the line. You don't let yourself lose who you are. And you have to be prepared for the bully calling your bluff, which means you can't bluff. You cannot bluff. This has to be who you really are, and because it's part of what we are as mammals, as animals. Every animal has that survival drive. Anything that tells you that you don't is lying to you. It's there. In the same way that we all have the ability to heal, to love, to be soft, to nurture. We have both sides. The bully is looking for the people who are not connected to their strength. The bully strikes into your fear. As soon as you are taking active steps with your fear through, let's say, martial arts training, or meditating through your fear to get clarity, or whatever it is that you use that to drive it until you reach the part of yourself that has fear, but also clarity. It's not that the fear goes away, it's that you start understanding what the fear is there for. Why am I afraid? Oh, so that I can protect myself, run, fight, be a ninja and pretend to be cooperating while I actually gather information, whatever it is. You understand the nature of the bully. The bullies get scared just like anybody else. What they're hoping is you don't know that. So if you deal with your fear more than they have dealt with theirs, you're in the superior position. You understand them and they do not understand themselves. And you can act from there. But ultimately, the position of the warrior is, I'm ready to die and I'm ready to take you with me. That it is that willingness to be realistic about the fact that we don't survive all confrontations. And yet there are confrontations we must face. If you can hold both of those things, you've got your survival drive and you have committed, what are the things I'm willing to die for? I'm willing to die for my family. I'm willing to die for the values that are the very deepest part of me. Once I have that clarity, now I can speak of love and peace and spirit and hope that the person will respond to these things. And if they do not respond, then I must do my duty. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. That clarity. I get the feeling that you are afraid of the potential violence within you, Tom. And it is that violence connected to with clarity that allows your heart to be safe and allows you to be the loving person, the loving and protective person that I feel is actually who you are. We all have that, male and female. We have that.
When the violence starts,
Yes,
very hard to stop.
that's right. Which is why you do all in your power to stop it from happening. You do everything in your ability to keep it from happening. Never fight over anything you're not willing to die for. As far as I'm looking at it, never. And then you do what you have to do. And I think the more clarity you gain before the thing ever happens, the easier it is to snap yourself out of it when the enough damage has been done to reduce their capacity to hurt you. Your forebrain can then take over and say, wait, it's time to stop. But that wolf inside you, the more familiar you are with it, the easier it is to turn it on and off, to let it go and then say, time to come back. Okay?
I keep thinking when the wolf takes charge, there's a tendency not to see options.
That's true. The wolf takes charge after the heart and mind have said, We've run out of options. Let out the wolf. The wolf does not see options. That's right. The wolf will strike until the threat is gone. But take a look at wolves in the wild, not fictionalized depictions of it, but animals. Once the threat is reduced, especially if it's a member of their pack, the fight stops. So the animal instinct that you have is not the enemy. It's actually what enabled all of human society to develop. It's just that we don't want that to come out because, as you said, it sees no options. So you set yourself up so that it only comes out after all other options have been exhausted. But you be sure that you know that it's there. Because if you're dealing with a predator, the only thing that stops that predator is another predator. They see in your eyes. They don't want none of that smoke. You're not the one. You're not the guy. And for a person who is smaller and weaker, you need to act indirectly or to act as a member of a tribe. So you don't walk home from school by yourself. You walk home in a group, whatever it is that it takes. You learn verbal judo, whatever it is, but you start with the assumption that you have the right to protect yourself. You start with that. If you open your heart before you start with that, then this kind of conversation makes no sense. You have enough of that inside you that I can talk to it and say that you actually become safer and nicer and more peaceful if you know that if it actually goes down, you can deal with it. Because otherwise what happens is you're afraid of the confrontation. You're thinking he can hurt me rather than thinking about what you're going to do to him. And that fear, that's what he will strike into. That's where he will manipulate you. That's where he'll get you off balance. That's where he'll get you to compromise. That's where he'll get you to sell out your values. You have to be clear on what your values are. I suggest that your values start with protecting yourself, then protecting your family, and then seeing all of humanity as a tribe, and looking that you're actually trying to protect the person who is threatening you. You're trying to protect him from the consequences of his actions because you know what's going to happen if you can't. That dreadful power, that dreadful responsibility, that is the territory that adults have to navigate, or the children are not safe. Understood? You don't have to agree with me. I mean, I think that we agree more than not, but I need you to understand me.
I think I do.
I think you do too. I would love to take this conversation offline, but just we can continue this conversation at any length that you want to. This is a critical conversation. How do we keep the children safe? How do we keep our families safe? How do we make a better world? The warrior has a place for that, but so does the healer and the teacher and the lover, and the spiritual person and the poet. I didn't want to make contact with that warrior personality inside me. I was afraid of it. I'm a natural healer poet, but I felt like I did not have a tribe, and I needed to be my own tribe. I needed to complete myself to be safe. Once I had done that, I found another tribe. I gained entry into a tribe of warriors, who were real warriors. It was like, oh my God, how do I even begin to deal with this?
You got the real deal. Yeah.
Yeah, I got the real deal. And it was terrifying to me because I could not accept my own fear, which meant I could not accept my own power. But once I accepted my fear, it's like, I'm afraid. Then I saw the power, and then I understood where I was in this community, and I could offer them philosophy, and I could offer them healing, and I could watch their backs in a street fight, but these guys and girls, it's like they were something different. And I became familiar with what they are and what motivates them. And what the war chief of their tribe told me is that he developed his skills. It had to do with having been raised by his grandparents who had been slaves. And they understood what happens when you cannot protect your families. I won't be more explicit than that. But his connection to the clarity of his warrior nature came from the desire to protect his tribe, to protect his family. You get that? And
Yes.
because he went all the way there, he has this wonderful, open, loving heart. You should see him with his grandchildren. Oh my God. And he has an open, loving heart to anyone who offers him respect. Or I would not have been capable of following him. I saw how he was. All you had to do was offer him respect, and his heart opened to you immediately. Okay, it was just, he was in a company of warriors. When they get out and you compete, you know who somebody is when they hit you or when they're hurt. How do they react in the next moment emotionally? What happens? That's how, under stress, they show you who they are. And he found a community of warriors that valued him for who he was and therefore would protect him because he could teach them to protect their families more. It's just warriors understanding each other. Male and female, doesn't matter. Black and white, didn't matter. We are being honest with each other about the fact we want to survive. But we also are honest about the fact that we need love and we need community and we need respect. He found that reality. You can find that reality in the spiritual communities and the healing communities. You can find that. What that was not is politics. He's no good at politics. Okay? Once people start playing those games, that's not him. That's not him at all. What he wants is to talk one-to-one with warriors and healers, wherever you stand on that cycle. Are you being honest with me about who you are? He can deal with that. Can you see my humanity? He can deal with that. And he taught me to be proud of myself and clear about myself for what it is that I am and not ashamed of what I am not. Okay? And because of that, because I accept myself and love myself, I know I'm prepared to fight for myself. And so it was through love that I found my warrior self. I started with my head and my heart, and it took me longer than that, it took probably 30 years of constant work to work through the damage that was done by awakening my Kundalini backwards in that sense. And being able to get that physical spark going and that connection going and that self-forgiveness going, then I could really be a husband. And then I could really be a teacher. But I had to go through all the illusion first, the illusion of helplessness, the illusion that we are not part of nature, and nature is red of fang and claw, but it is also love and healing and nurturance. It's all of those things together. Okay?
Good.
I like you, Tom. You ask good questions, buddy. You do. I don't think you've ever asked a trivial question in all the time that I've known you, man. You're my kind of guy.
I try not to.
Yeah, good.
Time is
All
valuable.
right. You bet. So, other comments, questions, or requests? I need to go out to the Lost Con Science Fiction Convention today and teach there and so forth. So if there's anything anybody else wants from me, Leah Rush, have you got a question for me today, sweetheart?
I'm just starting to listen, Stephen. I mean, I'm pretty sure that I am not the worst person who feels lost in the wake of the last election.
No, you're not.
Yeah. And my family is far from my point of view.
I understood.
And I need to start listening.
Okay, so allow me to give you some homework, if you would be so kind, and allow me to say this. First, take care of yourself. Same thing. So the path that we're using to take care of ourselves, every hour on the hour, do 60 seconds of deep, slow diaphragmatic breathing. Deep, slow diaphragmatic breathing. When you breathe as if you are centered and calm, your brain believes it, and you will calm down. And it is not that there is not stress in the world, but you'll be in the center of the storm. You'll be in the eye of the storm. You'll be able to see the stress, but you're not being affected by it. From that point, you'll be able to make better decisions. You'll be able to see what's going on. Your family is in their positions. Care for yourself first before you try to help them. If you do that, you will say, oh my God, they're so afraid. Anger is a mask over fear. They're so afraid. They're so clinging to their politics as opposed to asking really deeply what is true. And if you know that your primary responsibility is to take care of yourself, then you gain the power and the only leverage you'll ever have that might enable you to affect them. Maybe you can't. But what is true is that your primary responsibility is to take care of Leah, to protect yourself with the same ferocity and compassion that you would protect a frightened child. To understand there's a part of you that is exposed to the adult world in a way that does not feel good. It's like, this is not good. There's so much danger. There's so many problems. There doesn't seem to be any hope. But to understand that that's the adult world, that we were protected from that. Every couple of generations, the end of the world happens. There's going to be a major war or a plague or something like this about every couple of generations. So the elders of the tribe remember the last time, but the children of the tribe only know peace. So oftentimes we protect the kids from developing the very strength they're going to need to deal with it the next time it happens again. You are probably a woman who, with a wonderful, loving heart, and the world needs you more than I can possibly say. But you need yourself. Take care of yourself first. Then you will have the tools to take care of others. If you can't sit at the Thanksgiving table and listen to people talking their political stuff, and you're sitting back and kind of seeing their fear, seeing that everybody wants to escape suffering, embrace joy, and be of service. That's what we all want. But you'll be able to say, oh, they're stuck. They're stuck in their fear. They think that concepts will save them. If you can do that, then you can be as compassionate as you can be facing down a mugger, understanding that this person wants to hurt you because they're hurting inside somewhere. Is there some way for me to disarm this so that I don't have to harm them or, of course, risk being harmed myself? If you do that, then you're stepping into the warrior part of your personality, okay? And the warrior part of your personality is to protect yourself and others so that it is free to open the healing, loving part of your personality. So that's all I want you to do, is to be sure first to protect yourself. Use the breathing. Do that for 2 weeks. Come back. Let us give you another piece. If you'll do that, no matter what you do, all I wish is for you to find the peace and the joy and the centeredness that you deserve. If what we're talking about here would be useful to you, we will give you all that we can, without any strings attached.
No, and I appreciate it, Stephen. Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right. So let's see. Is there anybody else? Chuck Lavazzi. Chuck's been looking and having different facial expressions. I would love for you to engage with us just a little bit, Chuck.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. This is different because I've engaged with you on Facebook a lot, but never in person. My question is very simple. I mean, everything you're saying makes sense. I have my graduate degree was in psychology. I understand all of this from an abstract point of view, and it's all correct. But I'm having trouble connecting that to actions we can take, that I can take personally, concretely, to protect myself and my family from the threats posed by what is, I think, obviously, a fascist administration that plans to take control next year. And
Okay.
I always feel better, as I said in my comment, if I know that there are things I can do, if I don't feel that I'm just sitting here waiting for someone to shoot me or something.
Absolutely. Look, man, and this is a great conversation. This might be the last conversation we have today on this situation because I've got some other things I need to do. But so you asked the perfect question. So those 3 steps that I suggest: take care of your body first.
Mm-hmm.
This is a perfect time for you to say, I'm going to get into the best shape of my life. Because if your body is healthy, you have the energy that you need for your energy to be flowing outwards, and there's your optimism. So breathing, Okay, you start with the breathing that interrupts, that keeps stress from becoming strain. So you start with the
Right.
physiological, get out of your head, get out of your head, get out of your head, get into your body. Your body understands, your body wants to survive. I don't care how desperate, how depressed, how suicidal you are. If I took your head and stuck it in a bucket of water, you would fight for your life. So the more threat you see, the more it's like, okay, let me hit the reset button. So I'm not worried about ego bullshit. I'm actually taking care of business here. The first thing you do is sharpen your axe. Okay. The first thing you do is be sure that you are seeing what is happening as clearly as possible. If the house is on fire, it's the one who can clearly see the path through the flames that can get the family out of the house. So the first thing you have to do is be sure, are you seeing clearly? Fear clouds your mind. So
Yes.
breathe. We control our emotions through controlling our physiology, our focus, and the language that we use. Okay. So the first thing you do is shift the physiology. That breaks a lot of stuff. It is breathing, 60 seconds of deep, slow diaphragmatic breathing, at least once an hour, at least 5 times a day. Okay. The next
Okay.
step, at least 5 times a day. That means not all at one time. So it's at 9 o'clock in the morning, you're doing it for 60 seconds, at 12 noon, at 3 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, at 9 o'clock. You set your alarm for that. That's the first step. If you can do that, then you are breaking the cycle of stress that clouds your mind. You're centering yourself. From that position, it's like, all right, what is there to be done? Remember that your goal is to escape suffering, embrace joy, and be of service. So that's the door out of the burning house. You see what you're trying to do. So the first thing is to escape suffering. How can I do that? Simply by being in the present moment. You're not worried about the future. You're not worried about the past, but you're also doing everything that is possible to do about the future.
Right.
The emotion you're feeling is supposed to drive an action. You'd either take the action or you realize I don't have the clarity to find the action. So the action of gaining clarity is itself an action. So you can say, I'm actually doing what I can do. First thing I'm going to do is take care of myself. The next thing I'll do is look at the situation, ask what is true, see what the best options are, and I'll be able to do it. So if you can see that, then just the breathing is, success is the progressive realization of a worthy goal. So just knowing that you're taking any action is hella better than taking no action. That negative emotion will poison you if you don't do something with it. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
Yes.
the
And in
next
fact, I'm already doing that to a large extent.
great.
You know,
So the
I
next step is to protect your family. Choose 3 people who you are going to provide emotional protection to, or just make them smile. It's
right.
it's that, because it's first take care of yourself, your body, your physiological response to stress, because that drives your heart and your mind. Then once you've got that, then you look at creating the greatest positivity that you can. What the world needs right now is leaders, because people feel panicked. So if you can show how to be positive at the same time that you're being realistic, you're not being a fool. You know that there are dangers, you know there are problems, but here is love, here is light. Come, let us sing together, let us celebrate. Okay, in the midst of the worst chaos, if you read, Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, in the middle of a concentration camp, the people who found a way to protect their emotions and be of service survived, and their hearts survived. They were more likely to survive. They were themselves up to the moment of their death. That's surviving. Everybody dies. But the question is, does the thing change you from being who you are? So you have to get in touch with that. But the third step is the thing that I think a lot of people have some difficulties with. Increase your resources. Increase your ability to help your community. This is a great time for you to be thinking, how can I increase my bank account? How can I make more money? And how can I have a surplus of physical energy, a surplus of emotional energy, and the surplus resources to reach out and help others? Every Christmas, one of the ways I motivate myself to create extra resources, is because I know that every Christmas I give money away. I know that my success benefits my community. I know that there are people hanging on by their fingernails. And if I say, let us know if you have a need and we can help you. First of all, they don't believe it. And then they reach out to me and they say, I've got this problem. I'm sleeping in my car. And they actually get the money. They get $50 or $100 from a stranger. That changes the way they see the world. And that's what my intention is. So first take care of yourself. Then take care of your family, however you define that, the small circle, and then create the resources to benefit the larger circle.
Okay. I
That
mean, I'm
is
already
you,
on that road, so that's good to know.
fantastic, fantastic. You know, we need people like you. We need them desperately. Okay? Good question, Chuck. If you have any additional questions about this, reach out to me on Facebook. I would encourage everybody to get yourselves a copy of the book, The Magic Formula, is available at realheroesjourney.com. If you can't afford the book, tell me and I will get you a free copy. You understand? I will give it to you if you can't afford it. But if you can afford it, that money goes into the Christmas fund and I'm helping other people with it. I mean, seriously, if you can contribute to the Christmas fund, by the way, I'll give you my PayPal at
Yeah, okay. Sure.
okay, so buy a copy of the book or ask for a copy of the book, but get into that book so that we can have this conversation at a higher level. The world desperately needs people who are not drowning. You don't have to be a lifeguard, but at the very least be able to stand with your feet on dry ground and say, swim this way, or stand on the
Yeah.
dock and throw them a life preserver. But
Yeah.
if you can be a strong enough swimmer to get down in the water with them, fantastic. But your first responsibility is to get your feet on dry ground. Okay?
Right. Your
All
first
right, buddy.
responsibility is yourself and your family, and yes,
Hell yes. I mean, that is
gotta
hell to the yes.
elder the yes. And by the way, I'm on Blue Sky too, and I'm already following you. So
I love it. I love it. So that's great, Chuck. If you want to be one of those people who's helping 100 people, man, oh man, oh man, I will coach you. I will give you everything I've got because the
okay.
world needs us. You
Yes,
understand
I
me?
would like to do that. I would like to do that.
Great. So when I talk about this stuff on Facebook, just start engaging with me more. Challenge me, push me, ask me any questions that you want. Unless I can back up my bullshit, I do not deserve to be a leader. Simple as that.
Sure. Okay.
All right. Okay. So I'm going to take off all the spotlights. This was great today, people. And I just, I love you so much. And I can feel your commitment. And thank you for being here the day after Thanksgiving. I hope that you had a wonderful time. And, there's good conversations going over there in chat. That's for sure. I'd like you to unmute yourselves and everybody say hello and goodbye to the people around. Until next week.
Hello and goodbye. Steve,
Hello.
I'll see you
Okay.
later
Everyone,
today.
Happy
you.
Thanksgiving.
Happy
Well,
Happy holidays.
Absolutely. Let people know
Lord.
about this meeting. The more desperate they are, like this, let them know that this exists every week, that there's a place they can go. This is the positive corner of the internet.
So is
I
this
will,
is this weekly at
yes,
this time?
yes,
Okay.
it's weekly at this time, this pace. You can use thefiredance.com, get on the mailing list, stephenbarneslist.com, and
I
I
am,
notify people when there isn't going to be a meeting or if it's at a slightly different time.
Okay.
But I'd like to close this with the Sanskrit expression that says that the divinity within me salutes and acknowledges the divinity within each and every one of you. Namaste. Take care. Have a wonderful week. Love each other. Take care of yourselves and take no shit from bullies. Take care, buddies. Bye bye.
You are the people
Bye-bye.
I'm thankful for, in addition to my family, all of you.
Oh, thank you, Anna, and right back at you, darling. Right back at you. I see who you are. I see your commitment, and you make a difference. It's wonderful to see you every week. Each and every one of you. You see, look around here. There's gay and straight, there's black and white, there's male and female, there's young and older. We're all the same souls having the same journey. Even the bullies are just on the same journey. Love yourselves enough to protect yourselves, but love others enough to see through their bullshit to the crying children inside. Take care. Bye bye.